of the display of his glory. All of it. So that means whatever you're interested in, whatever it is in the world, whatever you choose, that if you pursue it, if you think deeply about it, you are pursuing the glory of God. You are viewing his revealed creation. You are seeing his handiwork. Learn what you love. Whatever you enjoy, pursue it with your mind. Learn it to the best of your ability. I enjoy working with metal. I enjoy welding, right? And you may not know this, but it's actually a complex field. There's a lot to it. Whatever you do during the day, it's deep, it's rich, it's a part of God's creation. And you have an obligation to think deeply about the things that you do. We talked about integrating what we do into the Christian worldview, right? The ideas of creation, fall, and redemption, restoration, right? That what was this originally created for? How has the fall changed it? And how is it being redeemed? All of your life can be seen from that view. There's no need to view your work as something separate from your faith. All of life falls under the glory of God. All of life is a privilege to learn about, to think about. Okay? We as Christians, we have this obligation, but it's also a privilege. That's what this is all about. That's what we're trying to do. Okay? So I realize that the past 9 weeks have been heady, right? A lot of thinking, a lot of ideas, and not a whole lot of doing, right? So today I wanted to give you 4 things to do. Okay? 4 things to do, that practices for developing the mind, the Christian mind. Okay? At the end of the day, it's about doing something different. If you want to change, you're going to need to do something new. If you do the same things, you're not going to do anything different, right? Nothing's going to change. You can think about changing, but unless you actually do something different, it's not going to change, okay? So that's what these 4 things are about. These are 4 practices, we'll call them. And I would recommend that you find ways to practice these things in your life, okay? Number 1, read. 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 I heard a great quote the other day. I'm surprised I've never heard it before, but I heard someone say, "What advantage has the person who does not read over the person who cannot read?" The answer is there is no advantage, right? There is no advantage to the person who chooses not to read. I remember hearing Dr. R.C. Sproul talk about how we live in an illiterate society, right? We're not illiterate. We can all read, but the vast majority of us choose not to read, which is strange. It's a unique time in history, okay? Read. Everyone can read 12 books a year. You can almost accidentally read 12 books a year. Okay, that's 1 book a month. If you don't like to physically hold books, maybe you have a hard time making that time, audiobooks are amazing. Okay, if you haven't thought about integrating those into your life, I listen to books on my commute every day. And it's easy. If you didn't know, there's all kinds of subscriptions you can find, but if you didn't know, you can get a if you have a library card, our library has an app. I think they have a couple of them. One of them is called Cloud Library, where you can sign in with your library information and get audiobooks for free. You're welcome. Okay? Read what you enjoy. Okay? Maybe you're not into the stuff that I've been talking about, right? I think everybody here has heard the term Enlightenment philosophy 1 too many times in the past 10 weeks, right? Maybe that's not your bag. But learn about what you enjoy. Think deeply. That wasn't a stab at you, Andrew. I actually said it at least 5 or 6 times. Okay? Learn about what you enjoy. But not only just read, I want you to read well. Okay? I want you to read well. Read deeply. Okay? It's good. There is quality in reading casually. Okay? Everyone ought to read their Bible casually. I think that's good to do that. But you should also read your Bible deeply. Get a study Bible, pick a book of the Bible, and try to figure out what it means. What's the significance is? Why is this here? Why in the world did God include 1 Corinthians in the books of all the books of the Bible? Why is it here? Okay, think about it. Not only just the Bible, we need as Christians to think deeply and read well on all kinds of subjects, on all varieties. This, as we said, this is all God's creation. All of it is. What do you find interesting? Read well about it. Read great books. Read deeply, but not only read for quality. It kind of blew my mind because I feel like I was always taught in school that as long as you're reading, you're doing great. It doesn't matter what you read, you're doing great. Just read. Well, it turns out that's not exactly great advice because there's a lot of really lame books out there. Okay? And there's so many great books that there's no need to waste your time with the lame ones. Okay? If you're reading a book and it's terrible, stop reading it. Now, some books are hard to read, but they're good and they're worth the fight. But that's different. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay? Read quality books. Where do you find quality books? Ask people what books have changed their lives. Ask people what books have changed the way that you have thought. Okay? There's all kinds. We have probably had at least 15 to 20 book recommendations over the past 10 weeks. Probably 15 of those were Andrew Esme's. Nah, just kidding. Actually, Chris said you recommended at least 3 or 4 during the sermon one time. I can't remember. All right, taking stabs at everybody while I'm up here. If you read 2 of those books, I guarantee they'll change you, right? Guarantee they'll change you. This one particular book, Digital Minimalism, blew my mind. You may read it and think it's terrible, but that's because you missed it, right? Great book. It'll change the way you think, okay? The power of fiction. Okay, I'm not just talking about nonfiction here. The power of fiction, the power of story, of great stories. They shape us. They shape our emotions. They give us the ability to understand other people's emotions. We see life. When you read a book, you know that lens we were talking about, the idea of worldview, of seeing life through a lens, you're getting the opportunity to look through the lens of other people and to see life through their eyes. Powerful story has an amazing way to influence us and change us as a person. Okay? Lots of amazing books. If you want to, where to start with fiction, you can look up any list of great classics, right? And start there. Tons of wonderful books that will change you as a person. Okay? Read for variety. A few years ago, Cassie and I did a reading challenge. I think it was Kevin D. Young had a reading challenge list. I tried to search for it, and I couldn't find one. Does that sound right? Yeah. Okay. I tried to find like a 2021. I couldn't find one. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago. And the cool thing about his challenge was it was based on variety, right? And so he recommended you read a book that was published this year. He recommended that you read a book who was written by a woman, or a book that was written by a person of a different faith, or Cassie read a graphic novel at one point, which she would never do, right, in normal life. But the thing that was beautiful about it, it launched us into ideas and books that we would have never pursued, right? Never pursued. And this is really the power of reading great books, okay? It opens up a perspective that you would never have if you hadn't picked up those books, okay? There was another time my dad and I were working at the refinery, and we got put on a job, I think just by pure spite. We had to climb up this unit, and it was no elevator, just stairs. And I kid you not, that thing had to be 20 stories high. And we had to do something on almost every story as we went up, okay? And as you went up, you could see more and more, right? Because it was open railing, so you could see more and more. And by the time you reached the top, this perspective was opened up that was reached nowhere else in that plant that I've seen, right? You could see the shape of the land as I had never seen it before in my life. And that's how books work. Okay? You're seeing through the lens of other minds. It's almost impossible to find that elsewhere. You may find a great teacher in your lifetime, but great books are great teachers stored for you. That's what they are. Read. Okay, number 2, engage with people. with people, listening to and making friends with people who don't believe what you believe. It sounds novel, right? But if you really want to understand other people and reach other people, you're going to have to engage with them, right? And speak with them and listen to them. Loving someone is understanding them. It's at least wrapped up with it, right? And you think about that from your perspective. If you feel like someone really cares about you, you also really feel like they have understood you to some extent, right? So if we want to reach people, if we want to understand people, if we want to cause our minds to have to do the hard work of thinking through what we believe and how to speak that into other people's lives, we're going to have to really to understand other people. Because there's nothing more repugnant to me than to listen to a Christian speak to a perspective about another person whom they are assuming what they believe but really have no idea. Right? There's this picture in our society of Christian bigotry, right? Of intolerance for other ideas. And the reality is, it's based to some degree in some things that are true. Okay? If we want to reach people, we need to love those people. And to love those people, we need to understand those people. And if we're really going to speak to them in a way that's meaningful and persuasive, we need to hear them first. Okay? But it'll cause us to think. Ask questions like children, right? If you have children or you've been around children, children ask questions like nobody else, right? And then other questions, and then more questions, and then questions about that after you're done with that, right? But there's a lack of pride there, right? There's just a pure interest in learning, and we can do that with other people. Engage with other people. Number 3, create time and space to think. Create time and space to think. In Kyle Newport's book, Digital Minimalism, he calls this the practice of solitude. And he defines it in terms of having time in which you are not having input from other minds, okay, of any kind. So that includes a variety of things, right? Screens, music, books, people, all kinds of things. There needs to be time in your life in which the mute button is on to the rest of the world and your thoughts are free to flow. Okay? Now, the reason I bring this up is how many of you have one of these in your pocket? Okay? Most of you aren't raising your hands, and I know you have one in your pocket. Okay? I know you do. Okay? Did you know, and you're probably not surprised to hear this, but the people who design these things and who design the apps that are operating them, and particularly the social media type apps, are thinking very hard about how to use as much of your time as possible. How to make how to make you anxious to look at your phone again. I kid you not. They are designing the phone that way on purpose because it keeps the money in their pockets, right? we went to get some carry out the other day, and I gave my name, paid for my order, realized I was going to have to sit and wait for a couple minutes, and I literally had to resist the urge to pull my phone out of my pocket and look at it. Just for 5 minutes. I remember a time when I was a kid, when I went to the bathroom, I had to sit alone with my own thoughts for a few minutes. Right? When you couldn't take your phone to the bathroom with you. But we live in an age of distraction. Like no other time in history. Where from the time you wake up to the time you lay your head down, there is almost zero time where your thoughts are free from the input of other minds. That's unhealthy. That's not good. And as important as it is for us to be social, we are social beings. I'm not saying the phone is all bad. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that there is zero time for your mind to have the free flow of thoughts. You're headed for trouble. Okay? And for several reasons. One, just to process your own thoughts. And I'm guilty of this as anybody. I go from book to book to book to book without ever stopping stopping to really process the book that I just read. If you're not giving yourself time just to think as a person, you're missing out, right? You're shutting off the flow of thoughts. It's important for original thinking. Original thinkers change the world. They change the way people think, but how do we get access to original thoughts? Well, we need time alone with our own thoughts. And some of the greatest thinkers in history were super emphasized the time that they needed by themselves. Walked for 4 to 8 hours a single day on their own. Spent time alone, right? Time together and time alone. Original thinking. I think it's good for mental health. I think there's something wrong with the generation that's coming up, the technological generation that's coming up, who have been raised on phones and apps, that they have never spent time dealing with the thoughts in their own head and how to handle them and how to process them. And there's something unhealthy about that. So some quick suggestions about the practice of solitude. And I think this is a huge subject, and I'm just glancing over it here. How do you get times of solitude? One, you can wake up earlier than everybody else in your house. Okay? Everybody goes, next. Right? Wake up earlier. Get a minute to yourself. And don't turn on the phone, don't turn on the TV, don't watch the news. Take 15 minutes just to be with your own thoughts. Okay? You can try walking, right? This has been a tool of thinkers for history, right? Make time to walk and tell the rest of your family they're not invited. And don't bring your phone. And I know everybody's like, oh, wait a minute, what if somebody calls me? What if somebody texts me? What if somebody tags me in a photo? I don't feel like I'm that old. I may be. But it wasn't that long ago when you left the house, you left the phone. Or your parents went on a date and the babysitter couldn't call them. What did we do? Right? Everybody wants their kid to have a phone so they can call their kid, but I made it. And nobody called me. Right? It'll be okay. Now, again, there's the phone. I'm not trying to say that it's evil. Maybe. Okay. Well, the connectivity is good, right? But we also need disconnect. We need both. We need solitude. It's okay, right? It's okay to let your kid walk to the neighbor's yard, right? It's okay. Okay. Times of solitude. We all need solitude, okay? And number 4, and this is the last one, we need to play, right? And what I mean is to play in place of rest. I want you to think of rest as an activity. Okay, our goal, it seems to be for most of the day, is to make it to the couch, right? We get up in the morning to get to work, we get through work so we can get home, we get the kids fed, we get the kids in bed, and we can sit down. The whole day is just aimed at getting to the couch, right? But what if I told you that you would actually feel more rested if you did something as opposed to sat on the couch and watched TV or looked at a screen? That you would actually feel better, more energized, if you did something actively that you enjoyed. If you developed a skill. If you took up an instrument. If you learned to knit. I don't know. Right? If you do something with your hands. If you make something. If you build something. If you tinker. You will actually feel more rested by doing that than by sitting on the couch and watching a screen. Not to mention that now they're finding study after study is showing that watching screens right before bed is absolutely horrible for your sleep. Terrible for your quality of sleep. There's all kinds of things you could do do, but you probably shouldn't be watching screens right before bed anyway, right? So in order to make your mind active, right, to turn it on, when we watch screens, we turn our mind off usually, right? We watch. When we do things, we turn our mind on, and it works, and it's active. That's why books are different from movies. We have to imagine the scenery, right? Do something fun. Build something great. Learn a skill, and do it in your free time instead of looking at Facebook or whatever. I don't even know what they are. Okay, other things. Okay, do something enjoyable in your free time. Digital minimalism, he calls it high quality leisure time. Right? I watched a guy on YouTube build a semi-automatic potato cannon. That is awesome. You should build one. Right? But do something fun. Do something you enjoy. Okay? I'm not saying all movie watching is bad or all leisure time, it has to be active. I'm just saying we as a people, in order to develop our minds, in order to make our minds active, need to do quality things, right? Big things. Okay? So those are 4 things you can do, right? That we can do as Christians to develop the mind. Okay? But in closing here, I just want to make clear that this is actually going to be a lot harder than I'm making it out to be. Right? It's going to be a lot harder. We're actually we're swimming against the tide. Okay? We're swimming against the tide of popular culture when we talk about these things. Why are Christians pictured as backwards and ignorant in the media? Does anybody know? There's probably a little bit of truth to that. Right? Why do so many young Christians lose their faith in college? That's a common thing. But why is that a thing? Why are so few Christians represented in high culture? If you went to college, what percentage of your professors were Christians versus the ones that were militant atheists? Okay? There's few Christians represented in higher learning, right? Why? Well, it's because particularly in America we have a history in the past couple hundred years of anti-intellectualism, right? Actually against learning, and that's unhealthy. That's not good. That's not what the church ought to be. Okay? But in order to change that, it's going to take work. We as a church, it's going to take work. It's going to take active work to push against popular Christian culture. But not only that, we're swimming against Western culture and fallen human nature. Okay? We live in a culture of distraction, like I said. Everything is designed for you to veg out and look at a screen in our culture. Everything's designed that way, and in order to change that, it's actually going to be hard. It's going to be hard to put your phone down and go for a walk with your phone at home. If you haven't done that in a long time, it will be hard. Okay? It's going to be hard to sit down and wait for carry out without pulling your phone out. Maybe I shouldn't even had my phone in my pocket at that time. Okay? We as people take the path of least resistance. We do the easiest things. In order to change, it's going to be hard, right? And change is hard. Change is hard, and developing new habits are even harder, okay? But the good news is we as Christians have the Spirit of Christ in us, right? He is transforming us. He wants you in redemption to use your mind for all it's worth, to the glory of God. We have the mind of Christ in us, right? We have access to the mind of Christ. But we have to do, right? We have to put it to work. We have to work with all the strength that Christ gives us and become the people he designed us to be. Okay? We're going to observe the Lord's Supper together and worship of the Lord Jesus Christ. We've been doing the best we can with trying to wear a mask and gloves and everything, so we'll try to continue that practice for the known future. So if you would like to observe the Lord's Supper with us, we welcome you to do that. You don't have to be a member of our church, but we do ask that you, in good conscience, that you are following Christ with your life and repenting of sin. So if you would, please stand, and the elders are going to come up and give me a hand. getting those out to you. The good news in redemption is that God does not leave parts of us behind, that God is redeeming the whole self, the whole person, the heart, the soul, the mind. Everything about you is being made new and brought into God's kingdom for his glory. And all this is done by Christ for us in love. The body of Christ was broken for you. The blood of the new covenant poured out for you. Would you stand and worship with us?
Would you sing with us? Lamb who was slain, holy, holy. is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you.
Reading challenge. If you're searching for Kevin D. Young's reading challenge, you're going to have a hard time. So it's a great resource, though. If you search Tim Challies reading challenge, it kind of give you a list of ways that you can read better. Okay, so I highly recommend that to you. Announcements. Book club starts tonight, right? All right. Application. Sure. Beginning. Yeah. There you go. Okay. GCs, if you're not a part of a GC, get involved. We'd love to have you. We have in the box in the back, if you got a gift, church needs your support, AVOH needs your support. If you're choosing not to give, you're hurting yourself, okay? So give to the best of your ability. God bless you as you go. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. Because the good news is Christ